Hello and welcome to beamng.drive. I'm davidinark and today we're going to see how low we can go. That is, how low we can get our frame rates. But we need a point of reference, so this is one car on the Utah map. We're looking at about 130 was the peak. Oh, and there's a crash. By the way, the sound is going to be out of sync between the video and the audio, and you'll understand why by the time we get to the end of this thing. There's 135 FPS, so that looks like that was kind of the peak. So now we've got 4 vehicles, and what I'm doing is I'm spawning in a number of vehicles and then just setting the AI to flee and just, excuse me, see what happens. So it looks like well, there's 105, and by the way, the FPS counter in the upper left corner, oh, there's 114, 119. Wow, we're actually doing pretty good there. It's the FPS counter that was on screen, and I've just blown it up so that we can see what was happening here and what's going on with the FPS as we drive around aimlessly with our 4 vehicles here. Actually, I'm not even sure where the other vehicles went at this point, and I can't steer for anything, so there you go. But that was about what, 100, I think 112, 113, somewhere in there with 4 vehicles. So let's see what happens next. All right, up next we have 8 vehicles on the screen at a time, or I should just say in the game. They won't always be on the screen. The way I did this was, at first I had spawned in a number of vehicles just kind of one at a time, but that was way too tedious, so I started spawning them in at 4 at a time, and in this video we're going to skip around a bit. Looked like 90 something was about the highest FPS I think I saw there, so we'll say 90. I thought I saw a 90 there with 4 vehicles on the screen. I'm sorry, 8 vehicles. This is now 12 vehicles on the screen. We're looking at a major frame drop here. I think 53. Looks like 53 is maybe the highest. Oh, there's a 54. As we try to figure out what the heck we're doing, things are not looking good for us. 54, that appears to be. Oh, wait, there's a 55, a 56. Oh, wait, a 60. All right. So, with 12 vehicles on the screen, we did manage to hit 60 FPS a couple of times there, but generally hovering around in the upper 50s. Well, let's just say the 50s, because they're kind of bouncing all over the place. All right, 16 vehicles, and you can already see things are starting to stutter in terms of video. Now, I will tell you, while I was recording, the audio was fine, so obviously my computer was starting to struggle. I don't think here, I think it's later in the video when we really get things bogged down, but things are already coming apart at the seams here. We are down to about 20 some FPS, so we can already see that as we increase the number of cars, the FPS is going to continue to plummet. All right, 20 vehicles in the game, and we are running at 16 FPS. Again, my goal is to see how many vehicles I can get in the game and how low I can get the FPS as we are shoved off of the road and up under the overpass, over the bridge. That's not good for us. Not good for us at all. But looking at 16 FPS, we have come a long way down from the 135 where we started. That is for sure. Look at this. This dude is just hung up and stuck and you name it. There's a 17. So as we kind of bounce from car to car, we'll see a little different FPS in action. And now 28 vehicles on the screen at a time. And basically what I did was just, I don't know, I would pull up the car spawner, car chooser, and just randomly pick something to see, you know, what we could do. And then I would pick another vehicle that would serve kind of as the test bed. So this is us driving here, and I did see a 16 right before we started, but looks like 13. Oh, how you doing there? Oh, everybody, we're just going to ride over all the cop cars. So it looks like 13 FPS going on here. Oh, we're bumping. We're it's already getting hard to control the vehicles, and we're just at 12 and 13 FPS. As we lose FPS, we definitely will lose control. It's gonna get crazy, folks. We're what, about a third of the way through this? Yeah, it's gonna get nuts. All right, here we go. We got a bunch of vehicles, and I forgot to put how many. Oh, well, it's 36. That's how many it is. 36 vehicles in the game at one time. And with 36 vehicles, you can see we have all kinds of problems. We've got problems with stuff rendering. We've got issues definitely with drivability and frame rate. Again, adding just different vehicles to the mix. I thought it might be fun to throw in a set of destroyers, since they've got the ram plow and theoretically can get up to a pretty decent speed. Now, it turns out that there are so many vehicles in the game that they're all crashing to each other and piling up. So I didn't quite get... Oh, that dude lost his wheels. Not quite the outcome I perhaps was expecting, but still, the frame rates have significantly dropped. We're looking at 8 frames per second here, although it does get to 9. I don't believe we see double digits with this many vehicles on the screen at once. It is just chomping away at the computer. All right, here we go. 40 vehicles. That's right. We have 10 rows of 4 vehicles in the game. Man, this is so crazy. Oh my gosh. All right, so 8 frames per second, and you can see what's interesting to me is that you can actually get a decent amount of vehicles and not lose that much FPS. Now, we took a significant hit at the beginning of this as we started to add vehicles, but there comes kind of a point of I don't know if plateauing is the right word, or a point of you're not getting the return on spawning or something along those lines. And what I mean by that is you can actually spawn in a pretty significant, at least with my setup, a significant chunk of vehicles, and the frame rates are going to hover around that particular mark. Now, again, this is 7 and 8 frames per second, so nobody really wants to play with 7 or 8 frames per second as the destroyer comes up to whack us from behind. I got the hiccups, of course, and just helping to put us out of our misery. Well, 8 frames per second, that'll do it all alone. Here we go with 48 vehicles. That is 12 lines, 4 vehicles each. This is insanity. It's showing 7 frames. One of the things I think my computer was having trouble with, especially at this point forward, is that I don't believe the FPS is quite accurate, because I'm rendering all these vehicles on the screen, plus I'm recording, and I think the FPS counter at this point was having a hard time keeping up with just what was going on with everything happening. This also is why the sound is out of sync with what's happening. Whoa, that dude got some serious air up there, man, with what's happening on the screen, just because this computer is definitely chugging along, having a hard time, and I'm having a hard time steering and controlling the vehicle, because at this slow of a frame rate, it's hard to gauge what's happening where on the screen as we jump ahead to 56 vehicles on the screen. I never in my life thought I would see 56 vehicles in the game, let alone it actually work. And I'm going to use that term very, very loosely. We're looking at 6 frames per second, 5 frames per second, things get really, really bad here. And I decided at this point, honestly, I don't think I was getting accurate results by being in a vehicle and participating, because of the way things render. I think it was giving me a little more frames than it should have. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Probably not. It's something I'm making up, I'm sure. But anyhow, 56 vehicles in the game, and you can see this thing sputtering along. And we were at 6 frames when we started, but we've pretty much stayed in the 5 frames per second realm ever since then. And I mean, this is so slow and so laggy, and just, it's not playable. It's entertaining to watch, but playing it is, no, that's just not, it's just not happening. And I know some of you out there may be watching right now going, dude, that's what mine looks like all the time, you know, because I understand, you know, some folks don't have a PC to support beamng all that well, and I feel for you, man. I don't know how anybody plays this game running anywhere near 5 frames per second, because if I had hair, I'd be pulling it out. Oh, man, just, that is, look at that. Just little stutter. How did that orange car not? Okay. Well, 68 vehicles in the game. 68. I can remember, I think the last PC that I had, the PC that I had before this one, maybe it had been 2 versions ago now. I think I was getting like maybe 10 vehicles at the most before it would kind of wig out. I just can't believe we've got 68 vehicles in the game at one time, and this is on the Utah map. And I specifically picked the Utah map because it is also frame intensive. And you can see that we are currently running at about 4 frames per second. Now, here's the problem I was running into. I probably could have spawned in several more sets of vehicles. However, my computer was chugging at this point. The GPU fan was running pretty fast. You know, it was pretty loud. The CPU fan had really kicked in, which that kind of surprised me in a way. But basically, and then the case fans. I mean, basically the whole unit was just screaming. So I was like, I probably shouldn't take a chance and push this thing too much further. I think I made my point. I mean, come on. 68 vehicles in the game, 4 frames per second. Yeah, I'm going to call that a machine killer right there. By the way, I know I waited till the very end for this. I'm currently running a Ryzen 3700X with 16 gigs of RAM. I think those are, and a GTX 1070 8 gig video card. Those are pretty much the pertinent things. But yeah, so there you go. And I think I just saw it dip to 3. Did it dip to 3 frames per second? So technically speaking, as low as we can go, about 3 frames per second. So there you go, man. Got any questions, problems, suggestions, horror stories? Feel free to leave those down in the comments section below. Thank you so much to Hero of God, GamerGull, and Mr. Spooky7 for supporting me on Patreon. You can check that out, patreon.com/davidinark if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support. I love the feedback that you guys give. So as always, definitely leave comments down below, and I appreciate that so much. Whew. Thanks for watching beamng.drive. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.